thank you for coming today. This is our second event on art and blockchain through New Art Academy. We have two very interesting startups with us today. The first one is DADA.nyc. Beatriz is an artist, and she created a great platform for artists to create digital art, to share it on the same platform and to trade it on that platform, and all that also incorporates blockchain technology. So I think I'll just pass my word to Beatriz to introduce herself, and I'm myself very much looking forward to hearing more.
Sure, hello. So first of all, how many of you are really familiar with blockchain? Like you know a lot. Okay, and that it's the first time you don't really know anything. Yeah. Okay, just trying to. All right, so if we can turn the lights a little bit, I'm gonna talk to you about what we're doing with blockchain. But first, I'm gonna show you the platform, DADA, and a little bit of why we're doing it, why we decide to do it, what we're doing, and then how we integrated blockchain, where we're going from this. So, let's see, clicker is not working. It's okay. Like, yeah. Okay.
Just click next.
It's just you can do it because it's. I think it's too far.
Which one?
Just go back to the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. There we go.
All right. So so the first thing is I'm an artist, as Helena said. I'm a commercial artist. When I came to New York 20 years ago, I was 20 something, and most of the people I talked to told me that if I was thinking of getting a job as an artist, I should forget about it because it was too difficult. So I came, and within 6 months I was illustrating for the New York Times. Within a year I was supervising at MTV. I went to Disney, and then I opened my own shop. Our first project was for Ninja Turtles, and it was a $2 million deal. And then I've directed over 100 commercials for some of the biggest brands in the world. But here's the thing. I don't own any of the intellectual rights to all the work I've done in 20 years. So even as a successful commercial artist in New York, I only capture a tiny fraction of the value I create. So that I went to be a commercial artist because it was easier than being a fine artist. It was just like, for me, like if I have to go and ask for a grant to give me $5,000 to do my own thing, and it was just easier to do a job, right? So it made me think a lot about the state of what it means to be an artist, and whether it's commercial or fine art, all the limitations. So I decided to go and do something about it. We created DADA. There's my two co-founders, the CTO, Abraham and Judy, our CMO. We decided to do first, in order to build community, a social network where people will speak to each other using drawings. It was important to me as an artist to communicate visually. So it's like, to always think that I'm much more eloquent visually than I am in words. So I was always thinking that it's amazing to me that it's not a way of communicating visually. So let's do a demo. We're gonna just do a quick demo live.
Bear with me. Okay. Let's go to that.
So what we're doing is, there's nothing like it in the world, online, offline. What you're gonna see is really unique. And now blockchain technology allows for even go much further and really create a whole economy that is new. So this is a site, sorry that you're gonna have to see the whole site now and all of that.
Sorry about
You're probably gonna see my password.
that. No, you won't. No, they won't. All right.
All right, so this is my feed. What you see here is, if you want to just scroll a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Hold on 1 second. This. Oh, okay.
Show you now. So let's. If you go in there, you can start your own drawing.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, down. Start a drawing.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we have very simple tools. People are used to Photoshop and all kind of things and amazing applications. We made a point of just doing very, very simple, pen and paper almost. And you can invite people to your drawing.
Here. Hold on.
So that they can have a conversation with you. Right, so let's close that and go to the feed.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can reply to a drawing. Say this is a conversation that is going on. If you want to show the conversation from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Hold on.
Well, so you can add to a conversation. You never work over the work of somebody else, you just add to it.
I can't find the. I don't see the.
Just let's go to the.
I got it.
Let's go to the visual the popular visual conversation, so you guys see what people do.
Takes a little while.
All right, so you're gonna see some of the recent drawings, but they're all part of series. Go to the popular visual conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see that one. Let's
This
open
one?
that one. Uh-huh. So this is how it works. Somebody made a simple drawing, I replied to it, and then what we call magic happened. You want to show the whole conversation?
Yeah, I'm trying. I get.
Abraham, can you help her?
The thing is, like, I don't see the. There you go.
So this is all done by different people in different countries who have never met each other. It looks like done by one person, but it's all spontaneous. We don't give any prompt. It's just all done spontaneously. Let's see another one. Show you a couple more.
This one?
Yeah, let's see that one. So this one, somebody in the US made a simple flower, an artist in Chile replied with an indigenous man. And then people from all over the world started adding to that conversation. You can go faster.
Yeah.
It goes on and on and on. We're talking about 100 drawings probably. It breaks at any point because if there are two people answering at the same time, it opens a branch. So this is, in essence, a new way of making art, right? So what we're doing now, you can close that.
Mm-hmm.
And let's go back to the presentation.
Let me find it. Here we are. Okay.
And to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So we have over 150,000 registered users, and they have created about 100,000 drawings in the platform with that simple tool. And it's all being created for free, right? Like people just do it for love. And there's all kind of artists that we have, really great fine artists that use this as a way of getting their creativity and the flows. We have people who are accountants. We have people who, the woman that has done more drawings, she's done 7,000 drawings. She's a hairstylist. She never went to art school. So what we are doing now with blockchain, if we go to the next one, we're basically taking all the content that our users are creating in the platform, which is original, and we're channeling that into a decentralized marketplace that is run by smart contracts with IP protection for artists and proof of ownership for collectors. And what that means, let's go to the next one, is that blockchain technology, not only for some of you, you're probably very familiar with the provenance and how it's adding transparency with every transaction and all of that, but what is really new is that you can create digital scarcity. So what we did basically is like I can take one of my drawings and sell it for a limited edition of, let's say, 5 prints. And what we're doing is that we're issuing 5 tokens in the Ethereum blockchain that represent each digital print. So when people ask, well, you can take a screenshot. Yes, you can take a screenshot, but it will be like making a photocopy of a dollar bill because the actual value is in the token. So another way of I explain this is like, yes, everything that we do, whether it's physical or digital, if I do it, it belongs to me, right? But how do I prove it? That is the issue, right? So I always, the analogy that I give is like you can't have a car, but anyone can steal the car. The things that you have a title that says that is your car, and this is what blockchain allows. So now, not only I have a unique asset, unique digital asset. So imagine it's like a Bitcoin. So if I have a Bitcoin and I give it to you, then you have it and I don't have it anymore, right? So the same thing is going to happen with any digital asset. And we're halfway there. We're doing that through tokens, but eventually it will be the actual drawing in the platform or the song or whatever digital asset it is. So the reason there's some limitations with the technology because it's very early. So it's, first of all, it would be really expensive for us to put thousands of drawings in the blockchain. Very expensive, even if you create your own blockchain. It's also very slow, but eventually what will happen is that you will host everything on the blockchain and it will become just this unique digital asset. So let's go to the next one. So now what we did, if you want to go to the art gallery, we just launched our first collection of these powered by Ethereum blockchain. So we took 100 drawings that we decided to call the Crips and Weirdos collection because we launched it by Halloween. And what we did was that we took the 100 drawings and we decided that we had different levels of scarcity. So some drawings have 1,000 copies, some drawings have 10 copies. The drawings are extremely rare. You know that there are only 10 that exist in the world. So this is like a first pilot experiment that we did. And we're gonna show you, this is live. You have to connect to Ethereum. Helena doesn't have MetaMask, but if usually what you do, you connect to MetaMask, which is sort of a wallet that connects you to Ethereum blockchain. And from there, you can just buy and do, buy ETH or buy anything you want. So you can only buy this with ETH because it's in the Ethereum blockchain. And if you see, for instance, this one, you can see who is the author, you can see the origin, you can go into that and see that it belongs to a popular visual conversation. You can see amount of conversation. You can see the amount of copies that they are. The amount of copies, you can see that there's been already 4 that's been sold. So everything's going to be there, right? And every transaction is going to be recorded. And for us now, it's actually super interesting to be in front of you because there's a lot that we want to understand about what is it that makes something desirable, how a collector thinks. I'm a collector myself too, but there are all kinds of ways of thinking, right? And one of the things that we would love to talk to you after we finish this and have kind of a conversation is what it means for you, digital art. Because if from now on with blockchain technology, you can have the scarcity that we didn't have before, and you can have the attribution, and you can have the proof of ownership, what will that mean for you as a collector? Will you start collecting digital art in a different way that you do today if you collect digital art? So let's just go back to the presentation.
Okay. Hold on a second. Yes. Shall I move on?
Yeah. So basically, we will give people a certificate of authority, of authenticity. We're not in the business of the IP protection. There are other companies that do this already very well, like Ascribe and Verizart. They've been working on it for a while. We're actually using the API of Ascribe. They're doing their own blockchain just for that. But you can see that this is a certificate from Ascribe, that you have a cryptographic stamp that you can prove, and every transaction will be recorded here. So the next one. In our case, our marketplace, it's run by smart contracts, it's all code. So we decided, eventually it will be our community deciding, but because it was a pilot, we decided that this was going to be the profit distribution. And no matter how many transactions are going to be, the artist is always going to get their first share when it's the primary market. And if he goes to a secondary market, the artist is going to get 30%, and the collector is going to get 60%, because once you sell it, you don't have it anymore, but the artist is going to always get their first share. In our case, and we're talking about drawings, right? This will be sort of a scenario that you can see, like 100 drawings could generate $1.3 million for the scarcity that we're doing. And we're talking about most of the drawings being $10, right? So it is really about creating the demand for a marketplace like this. In our case, we're looking at it sort of a mix of art collecting and trading cards, because we have visual conversations that can be complete and have different ways of getting scarcity. But you can see how blockchain is unlocking an emerging market that is completely new, that is worth billions of dollars. So yeah, so to finish this part, what we're doing is we created, it's basically the world's only visual conversation platform, where people are from all globally are conversing with each other visually. And now with blockchain, we want to make sure that they, this community have a way of being self-sustaining, with a peer-to-peer market where they have full control, the artists, full control of their work and the value of their work. So now the other side for us is the collectors, and this I would like to open for a conversation and ask you guys a few questions. Because one of the things that we see, for instance, let's go to CryptoPunks. Is anybody familiar with the CryptoPunks? Anybody familiar with Rare Pepes? You're familiar with Rare Pepes? Rare Pepes? Rare Pepes?
Pepes. P-E-P-E.
Okay, so this is interesting because the Rare Pepes is something that is associated with the alt-right. But besides that, what they did basically was, it's a meme. Let's see the Rare Purpose first, because that's actually the first example that was ever done in the blockchain, where people could see for the first time that there was a way of creating digital scarcity. So yeah, you can go there. So Rare Pepper is a horrible meme. It's awful, the artists, awful, it's the alt-right. But what they did is that they decided that they needed a way of monetizing a meme, because people were like, it became viral and they didn't get any money or attribution. So they put it into the blockchain called Counterparty, and they tokenized it. And what happened is that they created a whole economy out of around this meme, and their Rare Pepes are actually worth $11,000. And you're talking about a horrible piece of art for a horrible concept. $11,000, right? So that was the first ever known application in the blockchain of what could be the art market. So let's see the CryptoPunks, a much more benign and nice experiment. These guys, what they did is that they generated 10,000, it's computer generated, 10,000 punks that have different elements, and some of them, they're all unique, but they share the same elements. So some like glasses, or some are, there might be the beer or the hair. And what they did is that they created a whole economy out of CryptoPunks that are 25 by 25 pixel avatars. Some of this, you can go down, you'll see the economy. Some of this, the average I think is an ETH, so about $300. They have sold, you can see it there. So see about 170,000 US dollars. And they've estimated that their market cap is about $1 million something. And you're talking about an avatar that is 25 by 25 pixel, right? And it's not even made by a person, it's computer generated. So you can see the potential here. So what we're doing is we basically took the CryptoPunks project and applied to what we're doing, which is a little bit more complex. And we can talk about, Abraham is here, our CTO. If you have technical questions, he can answer them. But then the question is, we would love to know what you guys think, right? Like the way we see things is we allowed anyone to participate in the platform. For us, anyone is creative, anyone is an artist. It doesn't matter if you're an accountant. If you're doing things and touches people, that's enough for us, because it is not about the work, it is about self-expression, and it's about communicating visually. But the thing about blockchain is that it actually is democratizing. So there's a lot of things that are going to be, that we're going to start questioning, like what is good art in terms of medium, like digital art lesser than physical art. Is an artist that does this less of an artist than somebody who is in the network of the art world. So, and what are the opportunities for the people who are not in the network, or let's say in New York, they're in other parts of the world, of showing their work and thriving. Because what blockchain is going to do is really going to democratize everything. The cryptocurrency is global. You don't have to go through a financial system. You don't have to belong to a specific art school or school of thought. And you're just basically going to have the access to connect to any collector or any person in the world that have the means to buy your art. So yeah, so love to take some questions and go from here. Yes.
I'm wondering about the story, this story, and so everyone who cooperates in the story, they are getting a percentage of the sale, and it's split between everyone.
So so the way we had it before blockchain is the artist is always gonna own the intellectual property of their drawing. DADA will own the actual conversation, because you couldn't do it without a platform, right? So now with blockchain, because we're gonna issue a token and we're gonna tokenize the community, what we're thinking is, and this is where it becomes really interesting in terms of business models, is we're gonna issue a token, and that token not only is gonna be the utility, but it's also gonna represent the entire collection of drawings that we have in the platform. Because all the drawings are done in the platform, there's nothing uploaded, and everything is collaborative. It makes sense for us that the token holds a percentage of the whole collection. So the more drawings there are, the more people that draw, the more collectors we have to buy, everybody will benefit. So to answer your question, before it would be like, if we took this and we made it into a book and then into an animation, and it made a lot of money, the only people who will benefit will be whoever was part of that conversation, right? And a percentage that will go to DADA. But because we can hold all the value in the token, if we sell this as a property to Disney and become $1 million thing, all the community is going to benefit, even if you never drew or collected, but you hold the token as an investor, or if you're a collector, or if you're an artist that nobody buys your thing, but you love to do it, you're going to benefit from it. So that's the way we're thinking about the intellectual property, always to the artist, and then the value that is created goes into the entire community. Yeah.
So is there an original artist who moderates the story and then chooses who can tag along?
No. There's the artist that starts a conversation, and we have a gamified system. So we designed the whole platform for collaboration, not for competition, not for, so it's done in a way that everybody's incentivized to reply. And so if you do something and a lot of people reply, you're going to get a lot of more points. If you reply to a lot of different things, you get more points if you just draw by yourself. But there's things that we designed it so there's certain behaviors that we want to happen. It's very positive, it's very validating, but we don't really do anything. Nobody moderates anything. Nobody. So what we do, for instance, if you don't like the response that you got, you can always open a branch and let somebody else answer. So it just goes into a different direction. You have a question? So we have ways of always giving flexibility, always giving an option without banning anyone, without censoring anyone. In fact, in the beginning, Abraham, you want to come? In the beginning, we had a lot of, because it was live and anyone could answer anything, we had a lot of penises and, like a couple a day. And yeah, and then we just tweaked it a little bit so that we actually asked people that they had to do about 5 drawings, get 200 points or something like that in order to actually reply. And that was the end of it. So, and because it's gamified, if you're at this level, then you're never going to get anybody. Like, you have to work in order to get here. So
we do have some moderation internally. We don't necessarily, we mostly don't use it, but like if we discover someone who we want to push up a little bit, then we can give them more points. And if like we haven't had really like an obscene picture, I think for years now. But if somebody comes in even after accruing his points and does something that is completely horrible, then we can take them off. But we haven't had to do it. Yeah.
Because it's just like you sort of marginalize it, so nobody sees it.
Hi, I have a question about the curatorial approach. So, in my opinion, it can be called the fully decentralized platform because it can't work without curators or some, let's say, censorship. So what are the further steps which will allow this decentralized platform to work according to blockchain ideology of full decentralization? And the second question is, when you push it to the market, how do you advertise it in between the cryptocurrency audience and the art audience? Because of course you have to educate the art market about cryptocurrencies, about tokens and so on, and vice versa. So do you use 2 marketing approaches? Thank you.
So the first question, the only decentralized part, like we have 2 products, right? You can think about it 2 products, the visual conversation platform, and then the marketplace where we're selling drawings. So the decentralized part is the marketplace. Ideally, when we launch the token, we are gonna decentralize everything. Now, the biggest issue is governance, right? So I don't think that that's gonna be gradual. I don't think it's something that you can just like put out there and it's gonna self-govern. But that is our aspiration, and we talk a lot with our users, and that's where we're moving forward. Now, it's going to be difficult, but in the beginning, at least, we can decentralize the actual selling platform pretty easily. So your second question.
Well, it's true that it's really challenging because there's like explaining the blockchain to people on social media or stuff like that is impossible. But we are gearing this marketplace to blockchain and crypto enthusiasts. So, this is like, that's where we're starting. So we're talking to this audience and hopefully finding collectors who are interested. And, we have been educating people about blockchain. Beatriz has written several articles, guest articles in different publications. Bitcoin Magazine featured one of them. So, just getting people used to it little by little. I hope that answers your question.
So just to add to that, we're sold already like 60 drawings, and just around our friends and family, we're doing a lot of experiments because it's impossible to educate people. You have to, it's beyond education. You have to change the mentality and the behavior when it comes to digital art, because it just doesn't have any value in people's mind, right? So the first thing that we have to do is to educate that there's a new way and there's actual real scarcity, and hopefully for people to start thinking that there's value in it. Probably the younger generation, actually.
Hi. I'm curious about the monetization in the cryptocurrency. So in the transaction you described as one of the works of art gets sold, for example, and the artist and DADA in certain percentages, their valuation of their tokens increases, right? So that token, though, in order for the artist to monetize that token in dollars, for example, I would imagine there has to be a secondary market for them to sell the token on an exchange for dollars for them to get paid, for example, right? And so that would presuppose an exchange rate for those tokens. So is that a risk that for example, if there are exchanges that carry the token, the DADA token, but it's very illiquid, so there's not a lot of buyers for the token, so the exchange rate gets lower and lower, the value to the artist of that token gets lower and lower. So how do you sort of factor that in terms of their value?
So there are two things, like the token that represents the drawing, that has no monetary value. It's just the unique digital asset that makes sure that it's scarce, right? And then there is the token of the community, let's call it the DADA token. That one will have no value without, supply and demand rules, right? It's like, it's beyond creating a marketplace. It's like you're really creating it's like a small country and you're creating an economy. So we have to think about it that way. And that's why your question is so important, because we have the supply. We know that we have 100,000 drawings. It's growing. We know that with 100 drawings, we can generate $1 million. Now, who is going to buy that, right? How we're going to do to create the demand when it's right now so segregated and so specific niche that can buy these drawings. So, but I think that because we're so early in terms of this, we have a marketplace that works. If tomorrow we close doors, the marketplace is going to live without data, right? Because it's truly decentralized. Then what we can start selling things, and we know that we're early, probably for mass adoption, for blockchain mass adoption. We're talking about 2 or 3 years, right? So we feel like we can do a lot of experiments in order to get first, before we actually launch the token, a lot of experiments with the platform, not to educate it, that's not going to be our job, but to really figure it out. Who are the people that can actually be the early adopters of this marketplace, that can put the demand forward?
Somebody print out these.
I think they need the sound.
Can somebody print these works of art out and sell them in the real world?
So and we actually we tried testing a lot of different business models. So you can go to DADA and buy, get like this drawing, and you can get a T-shirt, a mug, you can get all of that. You can get a print. So we make it easy for that to do. You can, the way I see it, it's like you can go to MoMA and take a picture of the Starry Nights and go and sell it. I mean, you can do that with anything, but still the value is in the painting, right? So.
But also there's a technical issue. We don't have, these drawings are not high resolution. So if you're not going to be able to print a super high resolution print out of it. So what we're really testing is the value of them as digital art that lives in your computer, not that you can necessarily put up on a wall. We can have prints made at this point because of, like the size of memory and stuff like that. We cannot really give like super high resolution to drawings. But it's like what I say, like people consume digital everything. They watch movies in devices like this. They read books in devices like this. They listen to music. But then when it comes to art, they want it up on the wall. And although I understand that, what we're trying also is to make people appreciate the value of digital art that lives on a screen. And there are ways to stream it or ways to make it look spectacular without necessarily having to print it out.
So quickly, the two things. One is if anyone can just like make money out of it, we have a high res of 3,000 pixels that we don't give. We could give that to collectors to do anything they want with it, but because we're proving that you can buy digital art for the intrinsic value that it has, we don't. Now we're not worried about screenshots or that, because that's not what we're solving. That happens in the real world, and it's gonna keep happening.
Yeah, I have two questions. First of all, are you seeing any, well, of course you are, but what kind of transaction speeds or issues with transaction speeds are you having on the blockchain? And secondly, have you guys decided on a percentage that you're taking off of each token and just what that is?
You want to talk about the challenges with the cost of transactions?
So yeah, it's really, the cost is really high, and basically we had a really big challenge trying to deploy the contract, designing the contract to how many drawings? We have 100 drawings. So we could have configured the 100 drawings in the contract, but we decided not to do it. We had to take a shortcut because it would be like too expensive for us. So yeah, right now it's really, really expensive. So you have to really think about what you want to do, and you have to be creative when you're designing your contract.
And also in terms of the transactions, we actually have some drawings for free that we wanted people just to claim and eventually sell if they want. They're drawings made by the DADA account, but then you still have to pay $2 for the transaction, right? Like it's not really free. And the percentage, we decided, I showed before, a 30-70, 30 for DADA, for the first transaction. So the artist owns the drawing. The first time somebody buys it, let's say you buy it, 70% goes to the artist straight, 30% to DADA because there are costs associated. And then on the secondary market, then it will be 30% to the artist, 10% to DADA for every transaction that happens, and 60% for the owner that is selling it.
Was that your question, or were you asking about the 5% of the
What percentage of the token?
Oh, the distribution of the token? Sorry.
Okay.
The distribution of the token, what we're thinking is we're actually preparing a pre-sale of the token. We're thinking 0.40. We're only going to do 100 million tokens. Some people do like this. It's so crazy out there, but it's 100 million tokens. We're only going to sell 35 million tokens, and at $0.40, whatever that equates in Bitcoin and ETH. And of course, you do a percentage of discount or bonus depending on that's what we're thinking. And the way we're going to do is that if you're an artist, because we have a gamified system, we can just easily translate. Instead of points, you get DADA tokens. So if you're making drawings, you're getting DADA tokens that you can then change for Bitcoin and then for Chilean pesos, right? So that is the idea, and to create that economy.
And adding to the gamification, what Bea was talking about, they are actually earning points right now. They don't have any value, but the points for us trying to solve the problem of the transactions will be like a buffer to then translate those points to the tokens. So instead of giving them the fractional token every single time they get a like or they make a drawing, what is going to happen is they're going to accumulate the points and then they're going to translate it to tokens in a single transaction. Like that's going to lower the cost of every single transaction happening in DADA.
I have a whole list, but I'll keep it brief. My question is more, again, on the transaction and the ownership. I mean, what's to say that I have other motives of collecting this and buying and selling it? Do you verify who, if a person is who they say they are? And also, when you do the transactions, like buying and selling these works of art, is it through DADA, or can it be done like between two individuals and they work out a deal, and then whether or not it's consistent with going market prices or not?
You want to answer the question? You want me to answer? Okay. You want to? Okay. So that was the first question. Quickly.
Proof of ownership. I mean, do you actually verify the owners are who they say they are, or can I come in and say I'm Pat Regan over here and I want to buy this?
So there's a lot of experimentation again, right, happening. So now the marketplace is separate from DADA. We don't ask people to create an account on DADA. They can buy it, and we don't know who they are. We just get their Ethereum address, right? We just get their address. So there's a lot of the anonymity of the blockchain that we should sort of figure out a way to not just to have people buying drawings, but to know who they are. Probably asking, like, have one sign up flow in which you're giving your address, but you're also giving your name. In our case, because we want to create community, we're not interested in just anonymous people buying things, but that's the way it is now. You don't have to, you don't know, you just know the address. So your second question
is the transactions, do they take place through DADA, or can they be done independently?
Right. So
and do you have anything where someone sells something at a very high price or low price outside of the market range for that particular artist? Do you have any response to that, or you just accept it as it is?
Right. So it's all done through the smart contracts, right? So the smart contracts execute. You decide whatever is decided in the smart contract. That's what's going to happen. In our case, so if you can do it without going into our gallery. You can do it from a smart contract on Ethereum. You can manipulate the contract, right? You can go in there and execute it without going to a website, but it's always going to go through the smart contract no matter what. So there is not going to be an extra different transaction going outside, because it's all attached to the token and the smart contract.
Sounds like you have a great device for moving money around.
Yes, there's a lot of that. Which is there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of dark money. Yes, in the blockchain, and there's some of the challenges that they're figuring out right now. But for us, there's also the actual potential of the technology to completely change the way things work. And in our case, that is what is interesting for us. And there are a lot of security issues, but at least the people that we know that are working are really serious about fixing those things and getting all the laundry money and all of that out of the question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Maybe one more question.
Real quick, first, Jim, people would know it's not me since you have better taste than me, I'm sure, if you were buying artwork in my name. Two quick questions, and I apologize, I missed the very beginning of the talk, so if any of this was touched upon. You've mentioning a lot about DADA being almost a project to prove a theory or to at least kind of test to see the acceptance of a variety of things, whether it's purchasing and consuming art solely digitally, the whole idea of collaboration, the whole idea of ownership through this cryptocurrency, et cetera, et cetera. Two quick questions, or maybe not. One is for DADA specifically, what do you see once you have either proved or disproved or whatever, what do you see as the next step as a company for you as an expansion or as a direction? And also, this is a platform obviously developed specifically for blockchain, or at least in conjunction with blockchain technology. How do you see this blockchain technology? What's the future role do you think, and this may be covered later, in the larger art world? I mean, we have the big Christie's auction tonight, and some of these things are of very high value, and ownership, authenticity, transaction, transparency, all that stuff is an issue that blockchain, I think, will eventually play a role in. What do you see that role?
So your first question, yes, it's all, everything that we've been doing is experimentation. And we had to change behaviors. As an artist, I knew that it was natural to me to communicate visually with somebody else, and you do all these, things once in a while with somebody, but we had to change behaviors in how you will use it, right? And starting for something as simple as a horizontal scroll, right? There was a lot of people saying like, that's like the death, you cannot do that. And it was a hell for them programming that, because everything is vertical, even they just made their life harder. But then when you know that it makes sense, then you just go for it and find a way, right? So that is what we've been doing. So to answer your second question, your question about where do we see us going, we always felt that the system was completely broken, no matter how you see it as an artist and art collector. It's broken, and we wanted to figure out a way of making it more democratic, making art more accessible. I'll ask quickly, like, how many of you consider yourself an artist? 2, 3. How many of you consider yourself creative? See, I can't believe that. All of you are, right? So starting from that simple notion of who is creative and who's not, we had a clear idea of what we wanted to achieve. And the same thing with respect of distribution of value, right? And fair distribution of value. So what we didn't start with blockchain in mind. What blockchain gave us is a platform to test those things and to experiment and figure out business models that are different and never done before, probably, but probably successful because the technology allows for that. So how do we see the market? To me, it's like it's going to disrupt everything, as you said, like just starting for transparency. It's about $2 billion that I think are lost every year of fake art being sold. So starting from the transparency, it's going to be huge. The second thing is this disintermediation of it, where you're not going to need a bank, let alone a gallery, right? So we're probably going to become cashless. We're probably going to become a society without banks because you won't need it anymore. So you don't need the gallery either. So what are going to be the adjustments for that? There's also questions about agency. Like if there are no banks and you miss your wallet or you trash, like, somebody trashed a hard drive with a bunch of Bitcoins and it turned out it's probably $7 million right now. Like the agency, the same, right? The agency in terms of an artist or the agency in terms of you as a collector. So all of that is going to be challenged and it's going to change. And then there is a whole new market. There's billions of dollars. So what's going to happen there? And then there you have that open market, the market opening, and then you have a whole value being created in cryptocurrencies, which is a completely new market as well. Of all these people that mine Bitcoins and bought ETH when they were $2, and now they have millions in their hands. They need stuff to do with it. So you have those two things, and that's not going to go anywhere. The Bitcoin, and so I think there's going to be a lot of disruption, and I hope that there is, right? Actually. So on that note.